Today we're changing the bearings in an Alliance motor. Pretty much the same procedure for any motor out of an Alliance washing machine. First thing you want to do is get the pulley off your motor. There's usually one set screw in here, or on the larger motors you'll get two. The main thing, get those loose. If they're rusty, you can spray WD-40 in there, or put the bit in the end and tap it with a hammer to shock it. It'll help break up the rust. But once you have that loose, you need to put a puller on there, tighten it down here, and then tighten this down. It'll pull the pulley right off the end for you. Once you have that off, there's a keyway. I don't know if you can see in the video, right at the back of the pulley, there's a little piece of the key sticking out. You need to get that off the motor shaft. I generally just lock a pair of vice grips on it, and then point them down and just tap it with a hammer and it'll come right out. Like you can see on this one here that I already took the keyway out. And then once you have that off, you need to address the case of your motor. You've got 4 of these long bolts that go through. One end is just a tab, you have to hold it with pliers, and the other end is generally a 10mm nut. Take all 4 out, and then once you have them out, you want to use a block of wood and you don't want steel directly on the casing here, but just line up the wood so you're catching the flat edge here, and hit one side, then the other, and just work your way around. You'll keep tapping the case and it'll separate, and you'll get the end pieces off like this. It's very important when you take the ends of the case off, you're going to find these flat springs under there. They go in the case, and then the bearing sits on top. You don't want to lose those. They help keep a little bit of tension on your bearings. And then the only other thing to keep in mind as you're separating your case, you've got one tab here. This is what the spring hooks to. Just mark your case. Like I usually just take a Sharpie and just do a black line. So when you put it back together, you know that's where this one tab goes to. But once you get your pulley off, your case separated, it's more like this motor here. This is your armature. You'll be pulling this out of the center. I already pulled the old bearings off. Again, I use a larger puller, but same principle as the pulley. You want to lock it over the bearing and tighten the shaft until it hits the end of the motor, and it'll pull the bearing right off. And then when you go to put the new bearings on, you don't ever want to pound on the outside edge of a bearing. You're putting all that tension on the ball bearings themselves. When you press a bearing on a shaft, you're basically pressing the inner sleeve over the shaft of the motor, and they reach a point where it's too tight, and you're pretty much stretching the metal, forcing it down. So you always want to pound on that inner race so you're actually pushing on the piece that's getting stretched instead of the outer edge. I actually use a pipe. This is out of a Dexter dryer, but it lines up well over that. So that what you can do when you're ready to press your new bearing on is just put it on the shaft, get your pipe over it, and then tap the top. But that way you're hitting the inner race, not the outer race. And you're also this one's already cleaned up, I already did it, but when you pull this out of your motor, you usually find a lot of rust on here. You're gonna wanna clean that off with a wire wheel. Like I use a bench grinder, and now you're gonna be really tempted. It would go fast. It'll go really fast if you hold both bearings and let the wire wheel actually spin the armature for you, but don't do that. That's extremely dangerous. You're basically spinning a bunch of blades here right next to your hand, and it'll going incredibly fast, and you have no way of stopping it. So don't. Like, hold it rigid on both ends. You don't want it to spin, and just take your time going back and forth to polish the rust off. And then once that's done and your bearings are on, you can go ahead and start reassembling your motor. Like I put the back end of the case already on this one. I put the bolts up through the bottom. And from here, you'd pretty much just drop the motor in, or the armature back in the casing. You might have to give it a tap to get the bearing to drop back in. And then throw the top half back on, and pretty much the same as disassembling it. And that's about all you need to know to rebuild an Alliance motor.